Afternoon, evening, whatever time you're tuning in the program called What's Going on FlintTalkRadio.com. I'm George Moss, the host of the program, and I'm very happy, as always, to see you out there in the listenership and the viewership, which we sometimes have to remind ourselves of with all these cameras in here. We have the viewership first because we got more cameras in here today than we've ever had. And I was just told before the show began to be broadcast today that we have some new cameras in here, and I'm going to be looking around trying to find out which one is on now. The one over here seems to be retired for the day, so I think I'm over in this area here. One camera in the center, some cameras over here on the side. So
The one on the short tripod right in front of you, it's mostly center on right now. We can switch it up back and forth. People can see more of the room once in a while.
They're going to make me more technological around here before this is over because I'm not a tech geek, but when I come in here and see all these cameras and new equipment being bought, there's a microphone right here in front of me. We're going to have that up and running, and they're telling me that we're going to have a camera. And there's going to be overhead, so it allows us to put on the screen some of the book marks that we read from and some passages where the viewers will be able to actually read it as we're reading it here, and the camera will be overhead and able to pick up the text. So there are a lot of things that are happening right here, and they brought some new people aboard that came in with some innovative ideas, and I don't have these ideas. Wait for me to have any ideas about technology. You know, I think that'll be the time when hell freezes over. But we have some new people on board, and they're bringing some new ideas about how the studio should look, doing some things upstairs, and this room here is looking like a whole different studio, the painting on the walls and the pictures. We never even thought about putting those things up until these new marketers came on. And it looks like we are now ready to go to phase. What phase would this be? Would this be phase 2 or phase 3? We can't keep up with what we're doing right here. So many changes are going on. Every time I come in here every week, there's some other change that's taking place that wasn't contemplated and wasn't talked about the week before. But as they think these things through, they're putting more things into place here. And I'm going to have to ask, who are these people behind the scenes that are? And we have some backers now that we didn't have before. And these aren't just people that come in with financial backing, but people that come in with new ideas about how things ought to be run. And I don't know if they're going to start charging me for doing my program or not, but I would not be at all surprised. I would not be at all surprised given all the changes. And I was remarking before the show started that we have a difference in the look of the studio. It's much brighter. We used to have I think it was like a black table in here. And they kind of darkened the room, and then we didn't have all the colors we have in here right now. And the lights the lights are shining directly on the area where we sit. And just so many things that are happening. So as we grow, I want you to stay with us because we are not even finished yet. And there are some other things that are being designed on the drawing boards as well. And it's too complex for me to figure out, but I can tell you that people are working very hard to bring quality to you on an hourly basis of all the programs that go on here. I wish I could take credit for it, but if I did that, there are people in the studio that are watching me, and it may take me by my lapel and throw me out of here, so I got to give credit where credit's due. I can't take any of the credit, but and I used to think John was, and I still do think that John is a genius, but now that he's being joined by others that have some other things to add into the mix here, it's too much for me to have expected starting 7 years ago, and we're still rolling, and we're not finished yet. I came to the studio today to talk about. I really had come to talk about some topics we picked up before, and before we get off the air, I've got to talk about immigration, and I'm going to be saying a few things too. Hopefully, we have enough time about taxation, which I can't leave that topic alone until we finish it. There's so many different departments we need to go into for our discussion that this topic is going to require some additional programs where we're hitting in bits and pieces of it so that by the time we finish with the topic, we'll have all of it done. But it will not be done in one particular segment because we need to update what we're talking about based on breaking news. I hadn't even intended to talk today about our illustrious Attorney General Eric Holder until I saw him on one of the programs yesterday on ABC the softball network. If you can't hit the ball, if you are a liberal politician and you can't hit the balls out the park, they're tossing up to the plate. You need another bat because you don't need one of those Louisville Sluggers. You need a plank because they're up there tossing the ball up to the plate and asking these questions that a third grader could answer. And yesterday they had on ABC Sunday, they had Eric Holder up there, and I could not believe the comments he was making, so I had to ask for the transcript, which I looked at this morning. And I just finished an article that I did on Facebook about it because I could not really believe that I was hearing what I was hearing. And I had to, when I write something on Facebook and when I come to the studio, I try to make sure I have my grounding points down to a science so that I'm not being fallacious in what I'm trying to report to the public. I take some credit, I take some honor really, and some pride in making sure that what I'm putting out in the public domain, that I have actually done the homework necessary to make sure that I'm not just beating my gums. I'm not doing what the politicians do, beating my gums together and spouting off nonsense that doesn't make any sense until you don't know that sometimes when they're speaking. And sometimes you just have a tendency to believe that your eyes have to be lying along with your ears because you can't believe people are saying the things they're saying in the public square. And you go back to look at it and say, yes, he did, in fact, say that. And this is what happened to Eric Holder yesterday. I was listening to the program, and I only listened to it because there was a report he was going to be on there, and I wanted to make sure that I got that firsthand. And I didn't know if I would be able to get the transcript at that time, so I want to make sure I got it firsthand. But as I was listening to him, I kept saying to myself that I don't believe that he actually made that comment. And so I asked for the transcript and, had the written words that were used so that I could study it again, make sure that I was, did you see what I heard? Voices in the mirror. So I wrote an article just before I came to the studio about the Attorney General's comments. And what he said, basically, as if I'm shocked that this occurred, where he was just simply straight, one comment after another being streamed on the airwaves that were contradictory to each other. For example, the Attorney General said that some of the comments that are made against him as Attorney General and the President comes from his words, racial animus. But then he said in the same sentence that it does not account for most of the critique and criticism that the President and he as Attorney General of the United States are receiving from the public. And so the question then becomes, if it is not the main driver of the criticism, then why is the Attorney General bringing it up, since he admitted himself that it is not the main thing that's driving it? And I would raise that question to you about why. I would raise the question that Hillary Clinton raised. What difference does it make? I mean, particularly since nobody in this case died like they did in Benghazi. And we're going to have to remember that for 2 years, because it's unconscionable that a woman that left 4 Americans to die in Benghazi would want to be the commander-in-chief with that kind of record, because it does make a difference. And I hope it makes a difference to the public in 2016, because this woman has no right to even think about considering a run for the presidency. But that's true of most of the politicians who have been in Washington. But the Attorney General made the comment that I just said he made, and did the disclaimer in the same sentence as he was saying that he was saying on the one hand that it was primary, and at the same time saying it was not primary, and made the statement that it was not the main driver. Well, if that is in fact the case, and it is the case, then what was the Attorney General doing in terms of bringing it up? He was keeping you from looking at what then is the driver, and even keeping you from asking the question. It's not a new trick. It's something you have to, I'm kind of aware of how politicians operate, been watching them for a period of time now, and also I'm aware of how the commercials are put together by psychologists. Took a little psychology myself, as a matter of fact, in college. So I kind of know how they do the doublespeak that George Orwell talks about in his book called 1984. And the talking underneath the surface is what you have to pay attention to. And so he was making the statement about the racial animus being a part of what is going on in the critique. At the same time, though, underneath that, he was stating, hoping you weren't paying strict attention, that it was not the main driver. So that if that is the case, then he threw it out there, which really is a part of his own pettiness to bring it up if it's not the main driver. Because if it's not the main driver, you need not even bring it into the public square and make it central to the conversation. But he didn't expect you to pay attention to that, and so he made it central when he admitted it was in fact peripheral. And then to top it off, he distracted the public because if he himself and I, meaning him, would say it was not the main driver, then what was the main driver, which went unmentioned? The main driver is that the critique then has validity because it is not based upon race. It makes absolute no sense, and that's why I said in my post, it makes absolute no sense then to take the racial animus out of it being the main driver, at the same time then be saying that the critique is invalid because the criticism is based upon, it's coming from goodwill, where there's no racial animus, but they're still saying he's not doing a good job based upon no ill intent. And that would be absolutely incoherent from a rational standpoint. But this Attorney General makes those kinds of statements all the time. I was stating, in addition, that when he was saying that we made a lot of progress, in a moment of clarity, and it was a very brief moment of clarity on the part of the Attorney General, he made the point that his being in the Attorney General role and the president being the first African-American president, the first African-American visible president, I would say, based upon the writings of Dr. Alcett Bakufu and also by J.E. Rogers. Joel A. Rogers wrote a pamphlet some time ago called The Five Negro Presidents. But the first visible African-American president we had, we are not going to dismiss you, Warren G. Harding, who was elected in 1920, because they brought that up about your ancestry the day before the election, trying to drive down your poll numbers, but didn't work. But then again, you didn't stay in office that long because you died in office in 1921 and was succeeded by one of the persons that belonged on Mount Rushmore who succeeded you, who was Calvin Coolidge. And nobody's going to bring his name up because who wants to talk about someone who kept their hands off the economy and let the business person do what they can do to drive the energy of the country and make the economy operate and make the country powerful in the place of politicians who brought it down to where we're seeing it right now with their nonsense we're seeing in Washington today. But the Attorney General said we made a lot of progress, and that can be seen by the fact we have President Obama in as the first, he said first African-American president, I would say the visible African-American president. And he, as Attorney General, that shows progress also. But I want to ask the Attorney General a question because what sounds like a moment of clarity is only a moment of clarity. But I would ask as Attorney General, would he see the same progress being made? Did he see the same progress being made when they had Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell, who preceded her, two successive secretaries of state that were succeeding each other under the Bush administration? Did he see that as progress? And if he did, why did he come out and critique Harry Belafonte, who was calling Dr. Condoleezza Rice and Uncle Tom for being in that role? You see, the progress is being made as he sees it because he's the one occupying the office. All other Democrats are. But I defy them to come, I dare them to come to the public and say that they saw progress being made when we had also two firsts, where we had Dr. Condoleezza Rice and Colonel. Do we put that behind Holder's name? What kind of what do we put behind his name, in front of his name, except Mr.? Or in this case right here, the title of his office, Attorney General. What are his accomplishments? what does he have a PhD? What are his degrees? And so, I mean, I know he's a graduate of Columbia University. I'm not taking that from him. But I would like to know if he felt there was progress being made when Republicans were when black Republicans were in the ascendancy. And I'm asking the question rhetorically because I already have the answer. The progress is made because they, the Democrats, are the ones in power, and they are first in the positions that they hold, but they were first in the positions before they got there. And I would dare anyone to go on the record and find it and show me and send it to me if you find it, where a holder said one word about the progress been made even before he arrived at the office. Then he says in the additional comments he made, and all of them were excruciating to listen to, he said that the time will come when more progress will be made, meaning that there will come a time when the critique will not be made about anything. Well, in this way, he's really saying, I mean, he wasn't, I mean, he's not even aware of the implications of his words, but he was actually saying the time will come where a black person is in office and there'll be no criticism of what they do, which he doesn't even understand the implications of that to be then that there will be a time when we'll look at racial healing to be that a black person gets in power and no one will criticize anything he does because of the past condition that blacks had in this country. The man is absolutely a basket case, and I call it for what it was. This man is and I said it out in writing because I can prove what I'm saying, that the Attorney General is unhinged. The proof of it is was nothing but proof in it. That's why I had to get the transcript. I had to get the transcripts, folks, because I could not believe that I had heard this man saying for all the time he was on the air the things he was saying. I had to get the transcript to read behind it because I could not believe a person could make those kinds of statements one after the other where all of them were nonsensical. And so I had to get the transcript to read it again, and I did read it again this morning before I wrote my article. And I'm absolutely convinced that this man needs some help. But I'm convinced the president needs some help too, on the same level. Just because people are elected now does not mean that there's not something going on in their mental apparatus that needs to be addressed just because they got more votes than someone else has gotten. Because there are a lot of ways in which that happens, and sometimes it happens because they didn't get the votes. And I'm not going to go into that because it's a different conversation. But dead folks are still walking around and they are voting in this country, which is why it was kind of interesting that the Attorney General said that the voting, the requirement that we have ID for voting is a matter of discriminatory conduct because it keeps people from being able to vote that are qualified to vote. And so the Attorney General didn't understand what he's saying there is that which he finds debilitating for the voters he identified would not be able to meet that standard. And they did ask him who was he talking about, and he said the young, the African Americans, Hispanics, really the Democratic base is what he was saying here. It was interesting that he saw this, and I didn't see it as badly as he did see it. I do see Democrats as being as helpless as he says they are, but not as helpless as he said. And everybody get mad at me, but not mad at him. And he was making a case that's even stronger than what I would say. He was saying it's debilitating. They can't get ID to go to the polls and show that as a standard for which we have people identifying themselves at the polls. He was saying that it's prohibited for people voting in the Democratic Party. He named them, but he didn't. But it was not debilitating for any of the members of the Republican Party. And then he made the comment that it would happen because what they would do is vote for the party that was not in power, that would be a party they did not like. So then the assumption there would be that when the party is in power that they do not like, they would be required to show ID, and then when the party is in power that they do like, they would have to show any ID. The fact is that they're asking to show ID in both cases, where there is ID required regardless of what party is in power. The comment is absurd. That's why I needed the transcript, because I could not believe that these kinds of comments could come out of, I don't know why I was surprised, but some things, even though you don't have high expectations, can surprise you because you don't expect to take the conversation that's already on some zero game as it is, the sub game being down to the floor as it is. You wouldn't expect them to take it down even lower than that to the basement level. And so you have to check to see if you heard the comments, you heard them, because this is a new low that you listened to. And made those comments that were absolutely absurd throughout the interview. And then said he's going to take North Carolina or higher. There was one other state, the court, because they're pressing their ID qualification as a basis for a person going to the polls and voting. And you're doing that at a time in which we're letting people into the country, validating their presence because they arrived here. And we don't think that people that break into the country would actually go to the polls and try to influence their benefits that they would get because they're here and probably going to be on welfare. Wouldn't they want to influence who's in power because they're gift giving? I mean, the horse that you want to keep giving is in one of the parties to the exclusion of the other party, and you want to influence that. But the Attorney General sees ID, to his great discredit, as a prohibition against the voters who are the members of his own party. I don't even know if they're insulted by it. But if I were a Democrat, and I'm not a Democrat nor a Republican, I wouldn't identify myself nor embarrass myself by claiming to be affiliated with either party. I'm an independent looking at what they're both doing, and I don't like what either one of the parties is doing at the present time, and both of them need to be taken down. And all the ones in Congress right now need to be voted out, the ones that are up for election 2014 in November, which is all of the members of the House and 1/3 of the members of the Senate. All of them need to go. We need to, in fact, we need to stop identifying in this country by party affiliation because even the ones in the parties are not that. They can call themselves Democrats, which means the majority view will be the view that prevails, and they are the custodians of that concept as Democrats. Republicans mean that they believe that you have the right to have representation in your government. And neither one of those propositions are true. So they're not Democrats or Republicans themselves. And there's no way in the world that those who are outside of the strictures of power in the country can be that if the ones who are the custodians of power in the country, who are the rulers of this country, are not that. Then how can those who are not even inside the gates of where the barbarians are, I mean the barbarians inside the gates that Sowell talks about, the barbarians that inside the gates are the ones who are ruling the country. That's at the top of it. There are some others underneath them. And if they're not that, then how do others then crook their mouths, twist their mouths, to claim that that's what they are? I don't make the claim. I'm an independent, and I look at what they're doing, and I call both of them to the question. I don't have any politicians that I favor. I don't favor any of them because I know who they are, and they know, and they know I know who they are. That's why I make sure I dot all my I's and I cross all my T's. When they come after me, as they did, what was it, 2 years ago? I was kind of laughing about it because I'm not going to settle with them by going down there and talking to them. I have nothing to say to them. So when they call me down, I'm not going down there. We're going to court. And when the shan hit the fan, they paid me more money than what I had gotten back initially in both cases. They filed a claim against me for 2 different years, the same year, trying to overwhelm me, and said I owed a total of $25,000, $14,000 one year, $11,000 the other year. I knew it was nothing but harassment, although it came from 2 different places, trying to act like they were not coordinating the efforts. One's from way out there in California. I have never gotten any kind of claim against me from the IRS way over in California somewhere. I'm in the Midwest, and my base is Cincinnati, but no, we come from Cincinnati because that'd be too much. That'd be able to tie that to Lois Lerner because that's where she was affiliating her crazies from. So I mean, she was in Washington, but you know that was where one of the arteries, main arteries in Cincinnati for the Midwest. And so they had to go away from that, and then they got me on a list way out there in California. The other one came from another part of the West, so I'm not supposed to assume any coordination here because it came from different states, but not from Cincinnati. And I saw all the way around that, and I told him I ain't coming down there. You can file all you want to. I'm taking this to court. And I ended up getting $500 more back for 1 year, $400 for the other. Now you believe I had stake that day? I had stake on the government. And I'm just waiting, you know, because I'm not going to quiet down. And I do understand, you know, what's up, and they know I know what's up because they monitor. I just read a report this morning on Facebook put out by one of the persons that put things on my wall and keep me posted on things that I may not have come across because I read different, you know, I read certain what do you call it, websites. And have another name for it as well. Anyway, it's these news feeds like the George Report, Media Research Center, and things like that, and some of the others. I like Town Hall, the syndicated columns that they put out there. I like to read some of their posts, not all of them, but a lot of them. And I try to stay abreast, but you can't stay abreast of all things that are happening. And these engines they have out there, these search engines, these information engines they have out there, you know, there's a lot of information that you just can't get it all. Although the George does a good job of trying to put all the topics that are extant for that day in one site, and you can kind of read the titles and decide what you're going to go and read. But you can't read all the articles, even if they put all the themes in one site. It's just too much information. But this morning, one of the persons trying to keep me informed on what he's coming across put on my wall that he had come across some information that showed that 80% of what is streamed online is housed in some of the files that they're keeping. I guess it would be under the NSA, you know, the one that's trying to secure us, the National Security Administration. You know, they want to secure us. They want to make sure that we are, you know, secure in the country. That's why we're letting people across the borders. Some of whom are Al-Qaeda, coming from as far away as Yemen and Syria, bringing bazookas in here. But they're trying to secure us by not protecting the borders and keeping people in, so we can come in through some kind of structure that allows us to, you know, have some idea of who is in fact entering the country, as any sovereign nation would do, so that they can keep the riffraff and also his enemies out of the country and maintain the sovereignty. That's what sovereignty really is in terms of being able to protect your boundaries. And if you don't have any boundaries because you can't protect them and you can't secure your borders, then you don't have any sovereignty. And so that is 80% of the comments that people are making on their phones and anything that they're doing in public, except when you're out here whispering, then that is part of the accumulation of information in the database they have against, I would say, against us rather than on us in this country, and that's a problem because it's unconstitutional, a direct violation of the amendment that gives us the right to privacy. But what does that mean anymore? I mean, they have rights, and to have the Constitution claiming that there are rights, the government sees that as you have rights that are bestowed upon you by the government, and therefore the government sees that it is the custodian of those rights, and therefore when it behooves them to take the rights back, because they are the ones that in fact projected those rights out into the public domain in the first place, when it behooves them to do otherwise, they can take those rights back, and that's how they see it. They don't see what Thomas Jefferson was talking about when he said that people are born with certain inalienable rights. They don't see it that way. They see it as rights that are bestowed upon you by the government. And they do not see these rights as inalienable rights such as life. Yes, life. That's why they can pass the Roe v. Wade case. Because if you have the right to life, then you have the right then not to have the state endorsing what amounts to murder called under other names. Because you can get around the prohibition about thou shalt not kill by not calling it killing. You can call it something else. You can have a generic term for it. But when life is in fact extinguished, and it is extinguished without cause, then what is that? And when the person that is perpetrated upon never was given a chance to draw his or her first breath, not only is the question what do you call it, but what do you call the people who are engaged in it? If you call them politicians, what else is there that you call them? Because what kind of politicians are we talking about? The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not the guarantee that you will have happiness or that your pursuit will be successful. And no government should be interfering with it on either end. The pursuit or the ability to have the opportunity to be engaged in the pursuit. That's not government in either case. And if the pursuit, given all of the particulars of your birthright, do not end in the kinds of results that you intended, then that is not on the society, that's on the person who didn't make the best of that which was available to him or to her. And there are no guarantees in life, and that's the way it should be, because life demands struggle, because progress is based upon the fact that nothing is in fact certain. And each day there is a struggle that you go through, and it should be expected, and it should be in fact embraced. Because without struggle, then what is the meaning? There is no purpose. If there's no struggle involved in the meaning, then it has no meaning. Because the meaning is that you have to struggle against that which is keeping you from being the best person and the best individual, have the best character and all of the other. You have to struggle because there are forces out here trying to keep you away from goals that you set for yourself. And the victory is not in allowing anyone to say what you can and what you will and will not do within the manner of respecting others' rights to have the same right to being the best they can be, as long as you're not interfering with that and you're being the best you can be. You should have the right to in order to do that. So that is what the politicians, and the Attorney General is one of those politicians that misses this. He thinks that he has to use government to bring about a particular end that is not a problem. I mean, you can't show ID, then what does that mean? It means you took your birthright and then claimed disability. After 18 years, you became disabled, unable to go downtown. You know what that song, Downtown? They play that song, and let's hear that song again, because you can go downtown and just simply put your, get a driver's license. They take a picture, and then you pay what? You pay for road tax. I hope Snyder understands that, and understand when we pay for our driver's license and pay for renewal of our driver's license, we're paying for the roads to be fixed. That's the tax. But we have a hard time, convincing them of that. Okay. We have to talk about that in the context of our next subject, because I think that Holder has another responsibility in this other issue as well, and that is the issue of immigration. And the president is saying that if the Congress does not act, then he will act. And Mr. President, you are called to act, but you're a little confused here about what action you're called to do. You're called to act, but you're called to enforce the laws, and the laws are passed by the Congress of the United States. That's what they're called to do. And in Article 1, Section 8, they spell out what the Congress can, in fact, what their responsibilities are. And they say here that in Article 1, Section 8, they say that Congress should have the right of immigration. That's in Article 1, Section 8. It's not in Article 2 where the responsibilities of the President of the United States are, the executive branch of government is set up in Article 2, and nowhere does it say anything in there that that is in fact part of the President's powers. In fact, in Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the Constitution, where it lays out that the President will be Commander-in-Chief, that does not mean that he's Commander-in-Chief to the point where he will in fact take over the powers delegated to the Congress of the United States in Article 1. In fact, that would make no sense to on the one hand, set out that Congress in Article 1 is established to regulate immigration, and then having forgot that in the very next breath, and in writing Article 2, forgetting what was written in Article 1, and then give the same specifications in terms of immigration to the President of the United States, having forgotten what was said in the first article of the Constitution of the United States. In fact, the document is so small, it only has 7 articles in it originally, and the document is so small, it's been almost impossible for all of the 50-some-odd persons meeting in Philadelphia to have forgotten what they wrote, because it was not like 2,000 pages like Obamacare was, where they remember everything had been written over the course of 2,000 pages. It really only had about, I would say, 14 of those, 7.5 by 11 or 9, what's that size of the paper? That is the business size paper, the longer kind, not the, I think not the one I think is 9 by 11 is one. Then there's another that's longer than that. If you fold that over, you can put all of the writing of the Constitution on about 28 of those pages. Really, it's only about 7. It's 7 good pages when you open it up and that, because it's not a large document. And even when you have the 27 amendments added to it, 10 of which were added in 1791 in what's called the Bill of Rights, you didn't have an extended document even there. It's very concise. These persons, they were not wordy, they got to the point, and they were very specific and very clear about what it was they were writing down in terms of the 3 branches of government and what their qualifications were in terms of what they would be involved in each of those 3 branches. And it did not set up the 4th branch, which is also a branch of government right now with the power they're willing, and that is the press, which refused to do its job, which was in Article 1 there. The intent was to have them as the overarching people's eyes and ears looking out and looking over what government was in fact doing in all the branches, and giving that information back to the public, the voting public in particular, so that they can hold the government to account, which would be the role, the media, the press's role, which is why the framers in the very first amendment gave the freedom of the press, freedom to the press, so that it could be the watchdog. Really, if you want to put it into terms that are more germane to what we see going on right now with Edward Snowden, to give them the role to act as the people's spies. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, in terms of all of the ones who want to put Snowden on trial for doing that which the media was supposed to be doing but was not doing, and therefore he in fact used the media to in fact inform the American people. Inform them of what? Inform them what this article just said this morning, my friend put on my Facebook page, which is that the government is in fact putting 80% of our public conversations in a database, which that is that cannot be if this is a free society. But this is not a free society. This is a society that has the illusion of being free. I'll talk about that hopefully at the end, but let me say a few things about immigration, about what is really going on here that nobody else has seen. There are a couple of things that are happening here that we need to point out at flinttalkradio.com, on this program at least, and that is what is happening in terms of the people who are voting with their feet by coming into the United States directly and without permission. Why are they doing that? Well, there's several things that are going on, probably 3 things that are going on, which you could see by one of them, you could see by the fact that these children were identified and put on buses and airplanes, and they were being exported to other parts of the country. Now, folks, that should tell you something. Let's try to think this through, because the press said that they were being taken in by relatives. In other words, they were taking them to specific places in the country, and they were saying that they were taking them so that they were being with relatives. Well, were some of those relatives their parents? In other words, if you think that these children are coming here being sent away from their parents and just sending their kids up here, do you know of any parents like that would do that in such large numbers, where they're sending their children away from them? You would have to not know a lot about how close-knit families are in the Hispanic culture. And they are very close-knit. Their families are more bad. They're more family bound in their family structures than probably our European cultures at this point. I mean, I know blacks are 75% approximately of blacks are now born in this country out of wedlock, but we don't see those kinds of numbers on that level in the Hispanic culture, and we don't see this disaffection to the extent we see it in some other communities of the family, because the families in Hispanic cultures are, through their own cultural linkages, are very strong. And to say they're sending their children away like that makes no sense when you understand the grounding points of the Hispanic culture. They're coming here to join their parents, is what was being shown there. And the question is, why are they coming here, either one of the groups? Well, that has that's another part of the conversation that's not being discussed. You remember foreign aid, where the government of this country, federal government, takes tax money and then it gives it out to create welfare, not only in the United States, which is a way of bribing the voters here, but also using that money as a way of bribing and getting influence in other parts of the world as well. I can tell you, being outside the country, that money does not get to where it's supposed to go. In fact, I'm telling people that want to help folks in the places where I go when I travel, that they should, in fact, find somebody on the ground, somebody in particular they know, and they can funnel the money directly to those individuals. I'm talking here about immigration in the context of what happens to the foreign aid. And the foreign aid is sent through these government institutions and other institutions, which are not Sunday school classes, and even if there are some church-based groups, they are less than forthcoming with that which is being sent to be used in a certain way, because they have their own interests they bring to the disbursement of those monies and any of the clothing. In other words, when you're sending even clothes down there, maybe what happens in those cases more often than not is the persons that receive the clothes, they open up a clothing store. I mean, that's what happens. So the foreign aid, let's talk about the foreign aid for a minute, because I think it ties into the immigration. The foreign aid does not mean that it's so foreign they don't know where it came from. And what is happening in the immigration here, of them coming from Central America and other parts of the world where this foreign aid, quote unquote, was given in these countries, but not getting down to the people are coming to this country to get their checks directly. That's what immigration is about. They're coming to pick up their checks in America, because the checks that America is sending to them, which we internationalize welfare, now the welfare recipients are coming to America to get it. That's what they're doing.
Well, they're saving money that way, so they don't have to. They're saving, be closer. Yeah, the postages, and then they got more stuff here to buy. They got more of a selection here. Yeah.
John, they come in here to get on welfare because the welfare checks were being sent to them at taxpayers' expense. You tell me about these politicians. I want to tell you about them because I know them very well. I mean, they got look, folks. They got upset when Mike Huckabee said some weeks ago. They took him to task because Mike Huckabee said that the people in America don't have any more have even fewer rights in America than they have in North Korea, where Kim Jong-un is. Oh, people got so upset, and they were going to take him to task. Even the conservatives were up there writing about it in town hall press and other mediums. They just could not stomach the idea of comparing the leadership in America to that in North Korea. Well, let me ask you a question about that, since you want to claim that there's somehow a fundamental difference in the leadership of the two countries. There is a difference in how they get in power. But ask yourself this question. When you saw that situation out there in Bundy, with Bundy out there in Nevada, where did all those guns come from? And why is it that you didn't see those guns before that situation developed? You think those guns were just out of whole cloth, all of a sudden appeared on the scene all of a sudden? What you're looking at here in America and what you're looking at in North Korea, and Stefan Molyneux is absolutely correct in what he says here, is that you don't see the gun in the room. That's the difference, because you see when you take power, and we saw that Kim Jong-un assumed power because it was passed down to him by his father, Kim Jong-il. When he died, the power fell into his brother's hand, his son's hand. And in Cuba, when Fidel Castro got too sick to run the country, he just simply, it's like a football. He passed it off to his brother.
You know, isn't it weird that the left always rails the fact about, privilege and rank and how that's not fair, that people are born privileged, but then they go work, incessantly to create this privileged class where they can hand over the entire country over to one of their relatives. I mean, it's like that's going to happen if we don't do something with the Clintons, and if Obama's daughters try to enter the field. I mean, that's, and the Bushes even. I mean, I'm going to aim it all. I do not. That's the thing is, it's become in the left. It just has this. It's a disgusting thing that they can't see the faults of their own people.
They can't see it, John.
It's like a hero. It's like a cult of personality worship. I mean, if you say anything about Obama, I mean, these people are like, you're saying something about Jesus or something. I mean, I think it's disgusting. Quite frankly.
It is. It's absolutely outrageous when you think about it, because they're being insulted in front of their, not behind their backs, in front of their backs, and they don't even see the insult that is taking place, where the left leadership is telling them that they are helpless and they are willing to come to the rescue and give them that which is not earned, so that they don't have to be productive and just simply sit there and support these policies, which you see the results of it in terms of where the country is right now and how it's being brought down. In fact, what they'll do is they'll say, John, that they want to help the poor by policies that are guaranteed to keep the poor by bringing in competing unskilled workers that do not compete at the Bill Gates level. They come in and they compete at the poor levels and make the poor in this country poorer by flooding the market with people who have similar skills to what the poor have, and make it impossible for the poor to rise to the next level and claim that they are in fact putting things in place for the poor when they're actually doing the opposite of that and are not being caught at it.
And it's interesting too, because you'll have the unions now on board with the Democratic Party. They've always been seen like they're married, they're joined together at the hip. And it's like their union leadership. And these people who are coming in are just either potential, union members, or if they're going to exist outside the membership, they're actually going to be competition for these the membership of the unions, for the jobs. So basically, you're scratching your head out. Now, how the hell they get this past these people? Mm-hmm. These people are like working against their own interests of their own membership, because let's face it, everybody wants to talk. Well, these guys from Mexico will do these jobs a lot cheaper. Well, they never address the role of taxation. of it being a problem for people who have to pay taxes, and then also try to make ends meet after taxes are paid. Now, the bulk of people will get a huge chunk back at the end of the year, but that gives the government a chance to use your money, without interest free. They're not going to give you interest on what they use or going to turn back to you. You're just happy you're going to get something back. I mean, everybody's just going to buy that large screen TV. Wouldn't it be better if they had that money throughout the year to actually live on? But no, they're so good. It's like a little bank account they think they're going to have, and then they get their income credit, basically taking money away from somebody else, and they're delighted. I mean, if I were to do that to them, and they say that's unfair if I was trying to take something away from them, why is it fair because they're taking away from somebody else who's earned more than them? I mean, it's resentment, plain and simple.
Yes.
It's motivated. It's fully out of resentment.
Yeah, it is programmatic helplessness on the part of the government. The government, in order for the government to be relevant and not to be what it really is obsolete until something happens that the government is set up to do, which the government can do, which is to stop force from being initiated by those who don't have the monopoly on the initiation of force. We put the government there to stop it. That's pretty much what the government's role is. But that means the government is most of the time irrelevant, which was intended by the framers, by the way, because they said that the members of the Congress should meet once a year, at least once a year. And all this meeting every day, they didn't intend that. It's not even necessary. So government is basically, irrelevant until something comes up the government was set up to do. And what's set up to do was to take the bully and make sure the bully is not, in fact, as an individual, able to take more vulnerable individuals and overwhelm them with force. That's what government was set up for. Other than that, it's pretty well irrelevant. But government has a need for people to be helpless, because otherwise you don't have to invite them into doing anything in your behalf, because the people are productive and government's on the sideline and you're doing things that government doesn't have to do it and things of that sort. So they're bringing these helpless people. They justify what? More government. And of course, you have to then vote a certain way so that the government can do the things that you need them to do, because you can't do these things for yourself. So helplessness is programmatic in the country, and we have to understand that is part of what politicians are doing in the country. Is in fact training people to be helpless, because then government can expand its reach, because people are willing to give up liberty as long as they're being taken care of.
It's like, and they say like the right doesn't care about it. The right wingers, they don't care about it. Those capitalists don't. I don't want people to care about me. I don't want the ministry. I don't want the governments to even know I exist. And if you work for somebody, they might care about you enough to keep you coming back to the job, but they might not invite you over a house and play pinochle with you. And I never had a boss where I cared so much about that I actually want to spend that much time outside of work with anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like they want this, like they want to fulfill all the needs of all the people, instead of saying, okay, you get a paycheck and go off and do your own thing. They want everybody to be everything to everybody else. I think that's just. I think your freedom associated is where you're going to find your emotional ties on your own.
Yeah, you don't want persons to be this caring for the planet and people they have not met. What you want is a person caring for himself or herself, caring for their own interests, because in caring for their own interests, they will do something then in their own interest that will in fact benefit the other person, because you can't carry your own interests out on a mountaintop somewhere.
And the only reason why it becomes abusive if you're out in the pursuit of your own interests is when you can get a government official to do your bidding for you. And then what they want, they say the abuse, like they say all this stuff happened because of capitalism. Well, it's actually corporatism. And now they want to get the government more involved. It was because the government was involved in the first place that we're in the situation we're in now.
Yes. I heard the president say that I don't know when it was that greed became a virtue. I listen to these guys speak, and it's like what Milton Friedman said, on Donahue's show, when Donahue was trying to act like there's no greed in anything but a capitalist society. There's no greed in where communism.
And there's no greed amongst Obama. I mean, he started out as president, $1 million in bank account. If there's over $14 million now, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah, if there's no greed, how much of his wealth has he given to his brother George over there in Kenya, who's over there living in a shack? All that money the president's getting is keeping and hoarding for himself. But that's not greed, because greed is what the other guy's doing, and they actually believe that they're not greedy, but there's nothing more greedy than the government that produces nothing. But how does it? Where does the government get all this wealth from? It doesn't produce anything, and it has all this wealth. Gates doesn't have, by doing nothing, $2.5 trillion. The government gets every year. This is what it takes up in taxes. Now, you talking about greed? Okay, let's talk about greed for a minute with the government. The government takes up taxes. The taxes come to about $2.5 trillion, and they can't live on that. It needs more. It needs to gorge more than $2.5 trillion. So then it goes and borrows another $1.2 trillion. Now we up to 3.7. It goes and prints another 1.2 trillion, which was at one time another 70 to 80 billion. Is now down to 60 billion a month that they're printing there. That comes out to about another 1.2 trillion dollars. We up now to what? And then they're putting some tax burdens on our children in terms of passing on some of the taxes to the next generation. But that's not greed on their part. Now, they're not producing anything. Their greed doesn't produce anything. What we have that they're criticizing is greed that's put into the productive efforts of those who want somebody else's money and does not have the power to take it from them. So they produce a product because they want you to value the product more than you value the money in your pocket. You value the product more than you value the money in your pocket, and you, through a voluntary exchange of each other's goods and services and your materiality, you voluntarily exchange that, and they want to criticize that. And the president doesn't know where greed comes from. Greed comes by you having no ability to force the greed upon the other person, like you do in the government. That's where it stops being a virtue. In other words, the president is criticizing greed is not being a virtue because it's not a virtue in the way the greed carries out and what the president is in fact doing, where he's taking money and putting nothing in the place of it, taking it by force. And those of you that are surprised when the guns show up, I mean, there's some people right now, they're looking at these tanks they have inside the cities. I mean, these guys got tanks. I mean, look at some of these vehicles that they're driving around with the sheriff's names on it. It's got the sheriff. This isn't even a patrol car anymore. They got tanks they're riding around the cities in. And these people are paying for these tanks. We're paying for it through tax money, and they got these tanks. Now, who the hell are the tanks against? Well, it ain't against, you can believe one thing, it ain't against those guys just cross the border. Some of them are Al-Qaeda. There ain't no tanks on the border. I wish we could put some of those tanks. Let's have all the cities that got those tanks that y'all are putting in place. Yeah, I know. I think Mike Huckabee was right. I'm not surprised by what he said, and I agree with what he said, and he didn't say enough. Because I tell you what you do. You give, here's a litmus test. You give the people who are in Congress who have to put a mask on, and that's the difference between the rulers here and the rulers there. There's more masking required because you see, they let you select your rulers in this country. Now, you don't have the right to select no rulers. I mean, you don't have the right to go to the polls and say, okay, we're going to vote on having less government. We think the 2.1 million persons in the federal government, when we were supposed to have a Supreme Court, that's Article 3, that's 9 folks. We're supposed to have a Congress of the United States, that's 535. We're supposed to have an executive branch, that's the president's cabinet, that's probably about 19, 20 people. And that's our government. Well, where did 2.1 million come from? Because they got this humongous government. So you don't go to the poll and vote because they don't put on the ballot. We're gonna vote for small government. All you do in America, and listen to me close on this one. All you do in America is that you vote for your rulers, and beyond that, you're told to go in the corner and shut up. You don't vote for anything else. And that's the going rate. So we got an immigration problem. We got a problem with a person coming across the border, but that's the tip of the iceberg. You know what we really have in this country? We have a leadership problem in the country. And in November, we're going to be talking about this from here until then, we got a chance to do something about it. And there are There are 33 to 34 members of the Senate up for re-election in November, and every member of the House is up for re-election, and we got to turn some folks out. It's as simple as that. Okay, we got to get out of here because I see that the next show is ready to roll, and I'm going to be watching it from home if I get out of here in time. I'm always watching it live. One of the best programs on FlintTalkRadio.com is in the studio at this point. Comes on at 3:30, be around for about 30 to 40 minutes, called Satora's Black History Corner, and they're up and running at 3:30. Until next time, I want you to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.